Kitco News special coverage of the Future Blockchain Summit is brought to you by Cook Finance, a revolution in DeFi asset management.
I'm here with a very special guest, Farzam Kamalabadi. He is an expert on all things to do with blockchain and especially the history of where society has gone and will be headed. I like your presentation and your materials for this conference because you look at things from not just from a technical price perspective, from a very historical, socioeconomic perspective, and where blockchain fits in our society. Okay, you gave me a presentation. You called it the theology of digitalization, and I wonder why you chose that word. The word theology, it has a very religious connotation.
I use the word theology, meaning to understand the essence, the nature, where things come from, originate, why they are there, where they are at, and where they will lead. It is a concept of system-oriented mind and process-oriented mind, so that we position ourselves and we understand. We don't just follow blindly. And I called it the phenomena, that means the theology of the phenomena of digital global economy. I chose the word correctly. Economy is going global. Global economy is going digital, and that is a phenomena to understand. Don't miss out, don't over-exaggerate, don't do hypes, but do things correctly. You need to understand the phenomena.
I have a lot to discuss with you. Let's just touch on that last point. The global economy is going global. The economy is going global, and then the global economy going digital. Some people say, well, we're actually regressing. The economy has globalized, but we saw Trump's protectionist policies, we saw Brexit, we saw many protectionist policies around Europe. Can we regress back to less global, less trade, less interdependence, do you think?
It doesn't matter what the walls that the man-made conception makes to divide the either politics or economy. No matter what, the turn of the ACE card to digital is inevitable. It is not to say it's one unified pocket. Even they are divided pockets, all of them will be digitalized anyway. Why? Because the whole body of economy is moving from the body to tissues, to parts, to cells, finally to the DNA. Yes. Digitalization of value is the DNA of any value creation and global economy. That doesn't mean that they have to be all in one pocket. Actually, in the future, there will be a unity in diversity or a oneness or unison at least. And no matter what the policies divide, that will happen. But that's not the topic. The topic is the migration of value creation into digital. Yes. That means private equity from day one is public. It is tradable. It is because it is coded. And that's why we call it crypto. It's coded by numbers. And therefore, it is up to its cells and DNAs. The value creation and the value distribution, of course, also.
You have a slide in your presentation called the digitalization of all value. And then you listed stages in the economy, anatomy rather, stages and anatomy. First of all, why do you think all value will be digitized? I mean, some people say, well, we still want traditional assets like gold as hard assets. We still, maybe there's some value on fiat currencies. What do you think?
Of course. Every stage of progression of economy is based on one thing, and that is the classic assets. That means land, mine, factories, buildings, real estate, sure. Those are the hard, tangible assets. But we saw 100 or 70 years ago, there is also a stock market. Part of the value in the form of shares, paper shares, go on stock, and they're floated. Therefore, they become very much versatile, and they become flowing. And that means that the whole mass can adopt, therefore the moms and the pops become buyers and traders of companies. Yes. That was the way that America and Europe got the mid-class affluence. Yes. Okay? So that is not happening by itself, it's on top of a classic asset. When the internet came, it is still the classic asset that calls the shots, but the multiplier effect becomes higher because there is a more information exchange and more trading exchange. So it becomes faster and faster, easier and easier, larger and larger, more volumes. On blockchain, it comes to the height. Yes. In the classic asset, the returns, annual returns, 30%, 50%, very high. When it comes to the stock market, 2x, 5x, 10x. When it comes to internet, 200x. We see Amazon and others. When it comes to the digital, and that is the blockchain and the crypto, it's 500,000x. In the case of Bitcoin, maybe even more, and in the case of others, tens of thousands of x. So wealth creation is accelerated. Why? Because the operations of the smart contract, seamless, automatic, and transaction ledgers created, transparency makes the economic operations much more vibrated. And that's what we call how all the assets will have to and will become digitalized.
You're right. Bitcoin has appreciated 10,000% even more if you look at the entire history. Yeah, more. Is this over? Have we matured? Is the growth stabilized?
I don't focus on Bitcoin.
No problem.
Bitcoin is an index and a front runner and an important, what we call it, common denominator of different coins. Therefore, it will always be there and will be high. I don't believe it will have that, the multiplication goes up and levels a little bit. But so many other coins are emerging and will emerge.
Yeah.
But the first generation was hypes. The creation of coins was based on what I call coming from a culture of basically crowd financing. So people raise coins, make monies, and disappear.
That's
we
your
don't
concept
want
of blockchain generation 1.
Yes.
Yes.
The generation 1 is where the horizontal doesn't come first. The white paper promise comes later.
Yeah.
But they raise monies and they cannot deliver on the promise of white paper.
Okay.
And therefore the coin value drops or disappear.
Right.
Maybe a few are actually malignant Ponzi scheme and we can say charlatans, but a majority are benign. They want to deliver, but they don't have the ability to integrate industries and populate the operations of blockchain. So they issue coins, they give a promise of white paper, they cannot deliver. They fail also.
Okay.
My motto is first do the horizontal, then the vertical. First, operate your business, create value under classic operations integration. On top of that, make an index of new value of the new coin, tokens, and value. Only in a healthy way, then you will grow like this.
Yeah. What
it's
is
a very
generation?
visual.
What is generation 2?
Generation 2, the vertical will come second, or will be on top of a real integration of value.
Yeah.
That means if you are a health blockchain or you are a tourism blockchain, you integrate the operations. If you are an automotive blockchain, you first integrate the operational process, bring a lot of institutions and mass adoptions. There are 20 factors that you need to merge together so that your coin has real value and it will stay up. So,
where are we right now? Generation 1 or 2? Maybe a transition?
We are in moving away from generation 1 to generation 2, but still a lot of hypes are there. Yeah. That's why even the investors community, not only the old ones, the savvy ones, but the new ones, they need to be very careful. I teach the concept of you have to have your deciphering and your judgment ability to see what is the underlying value of not a promise of a hype. Right. Don't go to fashions and fads into NFTs and in others. Yes. See the real value when the value is real. Yeah. Otherwise, yes, you will make money, but short term. And that gives the concept to the world that the blockchain and the crypto is a sham, and we don't want that.
Let's talk about that. A lot of people think it's a scam, Ponzi scheme, whatever you want to call it. I think part of the reason is because crypto is the only asset I can think of where the money came from retail investors first, not the JP Morgans or the Bank of America.
Yes, that's what I was teaching or talking about together.
And it's very strange, right? So people say, well, my friends bought it, they don't understand anything about finance, must be a scam. So there's no legitimacy before. That's why they think so. So is that changing?
That was exactly the theme of my lecture where we met first.
Yes, exactly.
And that is that the three players, the private, the institutional, and the government have to be in a smooth operations. Of course, the whole blockchain and the whole Bitcoin and the digital currency started on a motive by a few Puritans who were super smart, who were fed up with centralization, whether on the banks or governments, and they wanted a decentralized, and maybe they call it economic fairness for all. Yeah. That's great, but you should not be anti-institutional nor anti-governmental. We don't want chaos. We want welcome their participation. In fact, we have to be in a balance. But the second point is this: if you create wealth on the motive of purity, that you want the wealth to be for everyone, but then you become super rich. In fact, by 1,000 times or by 1,000x multiplier effect, you have yuppies that become $50 billion asset owners in 2-3 years, or $10 billion. What will they do with assets? So you don't want to have a new class of super rich elitists who become proud and then they forget about. But I call the rise of the best. must include the rise of the rest.
Yeah.
The best must include the rest of the people.
Yeah.
What does it mean? That's why I created the concept. It's called benevolence, to be institutionalized in an automatic manner. I call it embedded benevolence.
Yeah.
We have embedded finance, where we turn any commercial value into a banking or a kind of a wealth creation system.
Do you think Bitcoin, blockchain, cryptos will create more equality or more inequality?
At the moment, inequality, against the motto of more distribution of wealth, because it will create iconic wealth
Yes.
creation, which are bigger. Remember, I have given a whole graphic and a whole statistics. We have the billionaire families, whether it's the Middle East, whether it's Rockefeller or Canoes and others, they made it over 100, 120, 150 years, 5 generations, 3 generations. Then it comes Li Ka-shing in 68 years in Hong Kong. Then comes Jack Ma in 18 years, create 20, 30 billion. Then we have the Ethereum in about 4 to 6 years, create the same wealth. Now we have really large wealth creation of the 20 to 30 billion dollars in 3 years, in 2 years, in 5 years. What will they do with that? Are they distributing it? In reality, no. At the moment, they are still good-hearted people, but soon you will see that it creates a very wider disparity between the. In order to avoid that, I have proposed and I'm inputting the concept of embedded benevolence. What does it mean? That means as you create wealth, you distribute it at the same time and automatically, seamlessly on smart contracts and intelligently and directly.
Right.
That means what I call humanitarian hyperledger, humanitarian distributed ledger, or philanthropic smart contract. So that the wealth creation already automatically embedded has earmarking for a wide distribution of it on smart contract. And this we will institute in our own organizations, including HOO, Hyper Optimum Organization Exchange that I'm leading, and also we will be implementing in other players. So we would like a day and an era where tens of thousands of blockchain companies that generate higher wealth, they have a mechanism of embedded that distributes it at the same time.
Yes. Okay. Mega capital migration. This is the theme. It segues perfectly. Tell us about the history of capital migration from the turn of the 20th century up till now, and then where we're going next.
I always invent my own methodologies and my own terminologies. So I created this, 20 years I've followed this. It's called mega capital migration. It has happened over 300 years of the discovery of North American continent, from the West Europe coming to US, building many communities, whether it's the Irish, the Jewish, the French, whatever, and building wealth there. Then the wealth created through the classic asset into the stock market, distributed. The wealth of the stock market went to Europe, and also the wealth of the capital went to Europe to invest into Germany after World War and to Japan after World War II, both of them. When they became rich, they went back to US and buy US. So then all of them, the Japan and the German and the Europe and the US, went into China. That was also the third generation of mega migration. Then from China came China outbound investment, which I was leading. I led the concept and changed the policies of the national policies of China, outbound investment in the 1990s, when it was all being inbound. And so I created the first case in the Vernon, California, outbound investment into Oman and the GCC, and the whole corridor of China outbound systematic investment. I changed the national policy that there was no need for approval from central government up to $100 million. That's the policy I embedded. So that migration, I also did bring in the first ever sovereign wealth fund from the GCC, Gulf Cooperation Council, into China.
Right.
So the first ever that I brought Kuwait Investment Authority, Qatar Investment Authority, Noor, Alma, and even Goldman. It was a club investments that initially I was like on the market positioning side, not the operations part. Goldman did the, what we call it underwriting, and they also invested from their own balance sheet. But the point was that it was the first migration of capital systematically from the Arab states into China. So these matured. China outbound still is growing, and all the world investing in China still is growing, but slowed down. But all of these were geographic asset migrations. There is a mega asset migration which is not geographic, it's vertical. And that is the move from the classical asset into the crypto asset and into blockchain and into national or global digital economies. That means all the old institutions of Switzerland and US and whether branded institutions. The first was JP Morgan, who was against crypto and blockchain, and only 2 years ago they moved in. And many other institutions have come in. And this is what I call a mega trend. It's a macro world processes. It's unstoppable. People don't know these concepts, that it is not by choice, the same way as an internet. Pause. Only less than 30 years ago, I myself, 1992 in China, in Shanghai, was among the first 100 who got an internet address, public.sta. It was CN, China. Only 100. And now China became the #1 rural telephony, #1 in telephone, in internet, in payments and everything. Revolutions change the fates of the destinies of the nations. What happened? In the internet era, everybody was ignorant about it. Everybody was suspicious about it. Everybody was against it. Everybody was curious, then adopted, then popularized, became all over the world. We don't live without internet, and we forgot that we were against it and we were ignorant about it. The same thing is happening to the blockchain and crypto and digital economy. We are curious, we are suspicious, we are natural resistance, but it is an inevitable mega world macro process.
It's inevitable. I just want to comment that I grew up in Vancouver, Canada, so I have witnessed firsthand the outbound capital from China, how you just described. It's very evident in Vancouver. But okay, let's talk about this inevitability. I want to ask you, in the history of mankind, how long has it taken people to adopt a new technology, okay? You talked about the internet, and of course before, let's just talk about exploration of new lands, like Europeans coming to North America. That was a new trend. How long before they became popular and was widely accepted as something to do?
The farther away we were from information exchange, the longer it had taken.
Yes.
It had taken.
Yes.
For example, the earliest times was about 10,000 years ago, the discovery of agriculture.
Yes.
That's Mesopotamian civilization, Mesopotamia. So the 2 rivers. So at that time, it took about probably 1,000 years, if not more, for the nomad tribes to settle down what we call civilization, creation of cities. You go to Susa, the capital of 26 civilizations, not dynasties. So I've taken the governor of Shandong and the whole delegation there, and they were surprised that the tomb of Prophet Daniel is in Iran, actually. Yeah. So that's one layer. The other layers in the recent times, we see the change was the Renaissance. It took about 200 years for it to mature. Then we have the discovery of North American continent. It took about 500 years and matured only this century. But the internet era, and what you say, after 1844, the inventions of telegram, it accelerated. From telegram to telephone to mobile to, of course, computer before that. And then now the internet, and beyond internet, we will have a spatial web. Internet is on HTML. It's only on text protocols. We will have on 3-dimensional protocols, which will be a big, what can call it the game changer. Not only linear, not only multilinear, but also 3-dimensional, and we can call it mega multiplication growth will happen beyond blockchain. So anytime the enabler comes, it accelerates the intercommunication, the unity and diversity of humanity, and the inequality that we have to create mechanisms to create equality.
So let me just ask you this final question, and then we'll talk about your future projects. Bitcoin, are we at full maturity because it's already been 12 years? If not, how long?
No, it will be long-term because of the, there is the limit issuance and long-term value increase. It will gradually give its way when it is, okay, any vertical, any crypto has value in so much as it is integrating what I call a horizontal operations of integration of industrial sectors. Okay, the horizontal determines the vertical, but in the Bitcoin case, there is no horizontal. What industry is it integrating? Yes, it is. It is integrating the financial industry. It is the common denominator of coin to coin. So it became an indicator of a financial digital asset. Yes. But then there are many other coins are being added. There's a lot of initiatives that is working on the what we call the underlying first layer technology, such as Algorand, such as Ethereum, and replacing it and diversifying it, and therefore a lot more value creation is going to be also grow in a real sense, and those will create their own indexes, which are called the coins and the tokens, and those indexes will not replace what we call either Ethereum or Bitcoin, but will diversify them. So that position of singleness and frontrunner will definitely slow down. Whereas its own multiplication, it will happen, it will not be in the 1000x's anymore.
We're talking about
or
15 years, 20 years?
Yeah, no, 10 years, 20 years, the Bitcoin will mature more, and the diversification, no, we don't need 50 years in this industry. 2 years is like a whole equivalent of 200 years. So within no more than 5 years, we'll see mega changes. And 10 years, the whole industry will mature.
Finally, you are the executive chairman of HOO Exchange. You are the chairman of the Future Trends Group. So you're very involved in this space. How do you plan to contribute to this mega capital migration?
First of all, on Future Trends, which is my umbrella organization, where I don't hold assets or operations. I'm an umbrella of influence, clout, past history of 100 successful cases of $30 billion, some of them world iconic cases in the world history, and including US Exim Bank loan to 56 Chinese cities and China outbound investment. Then I matured my system to become, like, as I said, with all of those and the know-how and network and methodologies, become an umbrella where we become the enabler by growth of corporations by multiplication. I call my company's business as changing the fate and the destinies of institutions. By what? By basically bringing in all the vectors of growth. Sales and distribution globally, partnerships globally, government relations globally, swap of shares globally, basically branding globally, then capital deployment, also investments, and on top of that, we do the vortex creation, centers of attraction, where other entities will come in, not as loose alliances, not as consortiums, but as swap of shares or participation of shares to create a larger conglomerate in a positive sense of it. I've done it several rounds, some cases 100x in 1 year, and in some case 20,000x multiplication in 1 year. So with that know-how, that means we are integrators and aggregators. But we do that when I am invited, or my system is invited, to be the inside shareholder of companies. We take a seat in the company, so we joint venture within the company. We create a global growth group, and our team and their team merge, and they basically digest my resources globally, our resources globally, and after the digestion, they explode. I call it implode first, digest, internalize, and then explode. How do you explode? By classic sales and distribution. Rather than one country, you're in 100 countries in about 3 years. Rather than only have 1, 2, 5 partners, you have 500 partners. So when I look at any phenomena or anything, people see 5 or 7 elements, I see 500, 700 elements, and I annex them. So annexation creates value bigger than any one of them. The analogy that I always use, physical analogies, is the creation of a spaceship, or even not that far, Boeing. Boeing has not one factory, has one main factory or several of the final product, but there are 80, maybe more factories and sub-factories that are creating spare parts. So each spare part is also basically aggregated, and then the full aggregation creates a one. So I'm doing that in the form of corporations. Okay, aggregating the different corporations around centers of excellence, or we can call it I call it vortex because it naturally attracts that the other companies come and give up their shares for their larger growth.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Farzam, it was a pleasure meeting you at the conference. I
Wonderful.
hope to speak with you again.
Thank you for drawing out from me some of the concepts that we have invented, utilized, and it's now proven results, and so that we can share with our audience, and we learn from everyone, and we try to contribute to the knowledge advancement globally.
Thank you for contributing to our audience as well, to their knowledge. And thank you for watching Kitco News. We'll have more for you. Stay tuned.
Kitco News special coverage of the Future Blockchain Summit is brought to you by Cook Finance, a revolution in DeFi asset management.